Hopefully it's the right John Dewey.
You're free to proceed.
Okay, John, can you hear us? John? You're muted, John, and we can't see you. Lower left-hand corner, start video as well.
One at a time. I got the mute
There
on.
you are.
At this point.
All right.
See, there's the video.
All right, great. Welcome. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order now. To let the record reflect, the only member not present today is John Gallagher, and we'd like to welcome John Dewey as a new member of our committee. Again, welcome. So let's see, correspondence. I believe there was one piece, wasn't there? I know that, well, let me address this first. As you probably know, that Mr. and Mrs. Good were hoping to be on the agenda today. My fault that they didn't get on this time. I am absolutely making sure that they'll get on for the June meeting. But it is going to be something that we'll have to talk a great deal about. They are looking for a curb on the called the north side of Columbia Avenue, where their house intersects is on Columbia and Grove. They would like a curb there to keep control of the people who are trying to park there. So that's going to be a bigger decision. And the thing is too, even if whenever we address this, it's not going to happen until next year because it's a capital expenditure and we're not in a position. And we can recommend that the city move forward, but the city commissioners would have to decide to spend those funds, which will probably be, upward of $10,000 for what they're looking at. I will send you a little survey that Suzanne drew on that shows where they want the curb. Anyway, I apologize that it wasn't on this agenda, although we have other things that are pressing right now. And as I say, this wouldn't happen probably this year anyway because of the capital expenditure. But
and I think, Pat, Kevin may have alluded to this, but isn't Columbia a Del Dot street?
Well, that's the other piece of it as well that Kevin reminded me is, so we'll have to get permitting through Del Dot as well. So that's also something that doesn't happen instantaneously. But we will definitely, it'll be the first thing on the agenda next month. Okay, let's move on. So I sent you this morning, everybody, I believe, the copies of the Sharrow painting, and also there's a bicycle map that the Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association wants to, well, it's actually a pedestrian / bicycle map that they want to go ahead and print and distribute. Unfortunately, they did not go through us on this. They actually went directly to the city manager and to the chief and got their okay for it, or they're waiting to get their okay. I don't know. What does everyone think about it? You've seen it this morning, I guess. Comments?
It's worthwhile if people know that it exists and actually look at it. Mm-hmm. But my continual position is that it's this thing and Google Maps that people are using, or Waze if they're in the car.
Other comments?
I thought it introduced some new tips that I hadn't seen in other brochures. And I guess I'm curious how they would plan to distribute it. If they'll get a wider distribution than other maps.
Well, it's the whole focus of it was safety. So it really wasn't meant to be a map. The map is just there kind of, I think, for reference. And John, you might want to chime in because you've been in, but my sense is that there was quite a lot of interest in it. There'd been a number of requests. I can't remember from who. It seems like Lingo was one. So they were just trying to decide how many thousands to print. Oh, and the bike shops, Frank Cole wanted it for all the bike shops. So there is I guess there is a thought of distributing it that way.
Right. As Susan was saying, the topic came up for discussion with the Homeowners Association Board, and the intent was to provide something that could be readily handed out that was vetted appropriately through the city and could become not substituting for anything else, but an additional resource to support what other information may already be out there. And as Susan was reflecting, there was quite a bit of interest, particularly from people who provide rentals, whether of bike equipment or for stays. And the Homeowners Association is moving forward now with a budget to print up a certain number for distribution to people who are interested.
Any other comments about how that affects what we have in place or had in place with I mean, this was before me. I mean, you all had some printed from the city's perspective last year, I guess. Is that right?
Yes, and there used to be a link on the city website to get to something like this. And we try to identify the best, quote, best, unquote, way to get around the city and avoid the red zone as highlighted here.
I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting.
Well, there are other maps that are out there,
Right.
and they're all worthwhile if people use them. And if the rental agents and the bike shops want to get them in front of people, it's great.
So the status of our map, I mean, do we still have some from last year? Do you know? Anyone?
I don't.
I don't know. I thought they did it every year though.
I did too. All right, well, I'll speak to the city manager. I mean, I understand that this is a safety map geared at pedestrians and safety. It should have come through us. I don't know why they didn't approach us on this. But in any case, excuse me. Go ahead, Donna.
Well, I mean, I don't know why, if it's a private entity, it has to go through the city or our committee. I mean, if another organization wants to provide some material, I don't know how the city has control over that, really. Be nice if they're coordinated.
Well, it is a city, you're right. I mean, but it's a city map, and I think it would have been smarter for them to have, been in touch with us, because that is it's up to us to vet these things, really. But in any case, I'm not saying don't print it. They can go ahead and do that. So I will talk to the city manager and then let her know, and also get an idea of where we stand with the printing of the map that the city has. So, but at this point, because as you know, we have such a short amount of time to discuss much. One thing is, Kevin, if you saw the email from Kevin Williams, and Kevin, you're on, I believe. Are you there, Kevin? I think you said you had only the first 30 minutes that you could spend. Any case, if you all look at, there he is.
Yep, I'm on.
Kevin?
There were some concerns, David, I don't know if you saw his email as well, about where they should be positioned.
I was just trying to highlight that, we in the past, we have this published bike route, right? That is highlighted in either orange or green, whichever one. And then it doesn't follow where we're now putting sharrows, or the new sharrows in addition to where we typically had sharrows before. And then I need to address the idea of, are there arrows on these sharrows, or is it just a bike? Because we really get into issues with at intersections. Are we trying to turn them left, right, like we were, in previous years, to get off of Rehoboth Avenue? We turn them down Canal to Hickman and down toward the beach. So I'm just trying to get a feel for, kind of what the intent of this is just to put bikes on the road so people know that there's going to be bikes around, or are we trying to direct traffic in one way or another? And then how does it relate to what we've already published on the bike route and the sharrows we've done in years past?
I tend to feel like arrows may not be the right way to go, just the bicycle portion, Kevin, because we really do want people coming across that bridge to turn right and go down Canal Street.
Right.
And that sharrow is pretty well faded away. And we don't quite know how Del Dot's going to stripe it coming across the bridge. And then it looks like we're really close to having the bi-directional lanes on the north side of Rehoboth Avenue coming across the bridge, which hopefully will direct people around behind the museum, behind the park, and over to Henlopen Avenue, and then get into the city that way. But I think if you put arrows with the bicycle, it might be construed as directional, which we really don't want to direct people that way. To me, it's more making the motorists aware that there are going to be bicycles sharing the roadway with them.
Right.
That's what's more important to me.
Other comments or?
Ditto. Yeah, I think I totally agree with what David was saying. That really, they're not directional, but we just want the motorists to know they need to share the road with bikes. And I think maybe not to confuse people with other maps, you know, just do bikes. And my other thought is like the maps that the city did with the bikes and trying to direct bikes, those are recommended routes. It's not like those streets are one way or only for bikes. So I don't think it's confusing. Even if sharrows were there, it would not necessarily be confusing because the sharrows would be, if you did put directionals, it would be the way bikes can go on either way on those streets. And it would not necessarily contradict what's on the maps, because I think the maps say any directionals there, they're recommended routes. It's not exclusively one way. But I agree with David, bottom line, just put the bikes on the roads where we were talking about.
Susan, any comments?
Well, you know, one thing, as I mentioned before the meeting, somebody said something to me that I hadn't thought about, which is the placement of the sharrows on the where in the lane. And their concern was if you first of all, if you put them in the middle of the lane, then, you know, it does say to people, both cars and bicycles, that there will be bikes in this area. But their concern was that if you put it like over on the side, right behind the parking spaces, that's actually more of a danger, because it's like you're encouraging the bikes to ride along right behind where a car might back out, instead of saying, if you're going to be in this block, you need to be safer in the middle with the cars.
Well, I think that we never anticipated, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, we never anticipated putting those sharrows, if you will, now just really the bicycle, in the parking area. It was always in the travel lane, correct?
Right. Our initial discussion was, you know, a foot off the you know, the striping on the right or the edge of the parking lane or whatever, but a foot into the right travel lane was kind of the rule of thumb we were using.
The research that I did, it seemed like most jurisdictions like them centered between where the wheels travel, because there's less maintenance in terms of repainting.
So the wheels of the car.
Right, the wheels of the car.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so dead center, generally speaking, in the middle of the travel lane requires less upkeep
Right.
long term. They don't get erased as easily.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
John, comments? You're on mute. You're muted.
Right. It's just, you know, kind of thinking it through as a casual bicycle rider, but also a driver coming in and out of, you know, crowded streets, particularly Rehoboth Avenue. My concern, if the indicators, sharrows, bicycles, are too far into the travel lane, it's going to encourage bicycles to mingle yet further with vehicles, which would clearly be dangerous for all involved. We are seemingly trying to encourage people to stay off of the heavily traveled streets, particularly Rehoboth Avenue. What's not quite clear to me, and perhaps somebody could just quickly answer, is there a plan to put anything on Rehoboth Avenue?
Yeah, the sharrows themselves, or in this
Sharrow,
case,
okay.
the imprint of the bicycle.
Okay. My point of view would be that it should not waver right to left, getting back and forth between parking spaces. It should run in a straight line. It should parallel the flow of traffic and should be as far to the right as safety would permit. I recognize from an earlier comment that that may create increased maintenance because it's going to get more tire wear. But anything that would encourage bicycles to to be moving more towards the left and mix more with traffic, I think creates a hazard.
Mm.
I'm looking at the RB HOA map, looking at the green bicyclists in the travel lane.
Yeah, which,
The cyclist has every right to occupy the entire lane
right.
on a piece of highway in the United States. And the state of Delaware is extremely bicycle friendly. Lewis is a bicycle friendly town. The city of Rehoboth Beach is not. So we're trying to make efforts to become more bicycle friendly. Most cyclists, whether they're casual or confident, are going to ride to the right anyway, because that gives them less exposure. But if you put the sharrow on the right side of the road, I think you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I feel that way too. In a way, it might give the impression like there's a bike lane on the right and there's really not. And that actually on the far right is very dangerous. That's probably more dangerous for bicyclists because of the cars backing out of traffic.
It's on Rehoboth Avenue, you've got so many people that have to inch out to get out of the parking space. And with the preponderance of SUVs, getting out of a parking space is really cumbersome.
Right.
Where you really wish you had a side view camera on your back bumper. So people easing out, if you have a cyclist, they're going to get doored or they're going to get carred, one or the other, if they're too close to the right. It's safer down the middle.
Yeah.
And the car doesn't try to squeeze you out of the way.
And I think we should put the sign in the middle of the street so the bicyclists know, yeah, they're entitled to be in the center of the street. That's okay. That their lane. And for cars to recognize that too. Though I agree with David, most bicyclists, they try to stay over to the right to not impede traffic. But sometimes they need to be in the center. And I think we want to.
If you want to turn left, you got to be in the left lane.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I think the
again, it's to me, it's to make the motorists aware that they're going to be sharing the space with the cyclists, less that it would encourage the cyclist to ride down the middle, because that's contrary to what most people do.
Well, and that's right. That's the whole purpose of the sharrows in this scenario, is to make motorists aware. That in fact is the main
part
of it, because as far as, and these are just the imprints of the bicycle, as far as directional, we'd love them to be off the avenue, and that's the kind of thing that we're trying to promote with eventually signage, and of course we have it on the map. But so I think I mean, John, I appreciate your comments, but I think that there's some really good things that have been mentioned about being doored, and also, people starting to pull out. The bicyclists need to feel safe. And I think in order for them to feel safe, that imprint of the bicycle in the middle of the lane makes some sense. It's letting the motorists know that, hey, these people have rights as well. So, all right,
Well,
go ahead.
This is Walter Massby.
Yeah, well, 1 second, Walter. Let me, John's going to speak and then I'm going to bring you on, okay? Go ahead, John.
Right, I understand the point of view, and I also have to be upfront that as I'm not a regular bicyclist, I may not necessarily be aware of all of the Delaware rules concerning sharing the road. I'm glad to hear that there's an emphasis on getting bicycles off Rehoboth Avenue for all the reasons, particularly that have already been described. As a casual user of a bicycle, I would never think of riding a bike down Rehoboth Avenue. I just wouldn't do it. And I frankly don't understand why people would make that choice. But people have the right to do it, and I'll let that lay.
Okay. Okay, Walter, Susan, did you have anything else you wanted to say
Yeah.
before I have Walter?
Thank you. I believe within the past couple meetings, an official person of Rehoboth, maybe it was the chief, read you the Uniform Traffic Code of the definition of a sharrow and where it was to be placed. And my recollection was that it was to be to the right side of the travel lane in normal travel. And like I said, I think it came from the Uniform Traffic Code and it might have been the chief. But why we have an open mic here, you also need to be commenting, let's just say Country Club Estates. If you have a sharrow on one side and it's a bike lane, you realistically should have one on the other side, opposite direction, period. Thank you.
I think we plan to do that. I mean, we do plan to do
That
that.
hasn't been said, so it should be clarified. I mean, because you're going to be putting markings in front of people's houses. Thank you.
We can probably arrange to send Walter this map with the sharrow locations, correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called Sharrow Designated Streets, Walter. Maybe he signed off. I don't know. Okay, go ahead.
Kevin, do you feel like you have the information that you can move forward?
Yeah, how about the left lanes of Rehoboth Avenue?
I don't think that we plan to put anything in the left lanes.
Okay.
Yeah.
My experience is the only people using the left lane are the confident cyclists.
And those people who are going to turn. Yeah, so.
Well, there's one old guy riding down there every morning. It's in the left lane and he's just singing along and, carrying on. But,
Get to know him, Kevin. Sounds like he's relaxed.
He's relaxed, all right.
All right. Let's move on. Can you feel like you have what you need, Kevin? To move
Sure
forward?
enough. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Bicycle racks. If you, Kevin, I don't know if he's leaving or not, but even if he does, we can certainly, oh, there he is.
There.
Still here if you need me.
If you, I've asked Kevin for a few that so far. If anyone else has identified something right now that they'd like to let Kevin know, they are putting some more bicycle racks out. And instead of having them do them all at one time necessarily, I'm sure they'd be happy to just have some more information if you all have some ideas of where else you would like to see some.
I need to reach back to Dan Slagle at Main Street because I didn't get anything back from him at all about any of the members, the business owners wanting them.
Okay.
So I think I'll touch base with him and let him know about 4 or 8 single or double sided and see if we can get, but Kevin, I guess we can just send you a picture of where we think one should go if.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
About.
We don't typically run out of them, so we have plenty and they're not that expensive to get more if we need them. And we move them throughout the season, obviously, as we see they start getting tied up to fences and that kind of thing. We'll bring another one in. But if you know ahead of time where, you think we have some issues after the pre-position out there.
Since you brought that up, Kevin, I could say at Hickman at the boardwalk, like we go down in the afternoon there and there can be 30 bikes right there at the end of Hickman. And they're just all over the place. So I think as many as possible down there. And I think maybe on the adjacent streets so that people, if they can't find parking at Hickman, they should be encouraged or even assigned to go to one of the other streets nearby and make sure there are enough racks on those. And I think I was glad to see actually that you'd put some bike racks in the median. I know you haven't, there's some question about doing that, but I think in the summer, the bike racks there in the first block are just so packed that obviously people want racks. And I think using the median in the first and second block is okay for bike racks. I think judicious placement of those could be helpful.
Anyone else have any requests at this point, or you can send Kevin an email as well.
Yep.
And it sounds like the best way to do that actually would be sort of if you can, a graphic perhaps, but okay. So I just wanted to bring that up again because it's getting close to the time. So if you had ideas of where else you wanted them, now's the time to speak or email Kevin. Okay, there's nothing else on that. Oh, Walter, do you have any comments?
in the medians, like on Rehoboth Avenue medians are pretty busy.
So what are you suggesting, Walter?
I think you need to be careful. You may not appreciate this, but I stopped many a party down by City Hall, et cetera, and suggest people when they're standing in the median and walking from median to median, I suggest that it's blocked all the way up Rehoboth Avenue and suggest they go to the sidewalk on one side or the other. Yeah. You see these people, some people trying to get across. Most of the medians do not have handicap access. So you don't need to be putting a lot of people on the medians because it's not easy to walk, to get bicycles up on them any easier than it is to get people up on them. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're almost at the half-hour mark, so we're going to move on to the next, to some new business. This is one that I put on there that was on one of the priority lists from the very beginning of when I first took over the committee. And it's something about the speed bump on Lake Drive. Can somebody address that for me, what the issue is there?
The issue that I observed is that they're not marked. So they're just the same color as the pavement. There are no, I call them teeth, triangles, typically on a speed bump.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not striped, they're not marked. And I just wonder if that's really safe.
Yeah, I don't know if Kevin's still on. I know he had to leave in 30 minutes, but if you are listening, Kevin, is there a possibility for us to do something about maybe doing the yellow? I think the yellow triangles wouldn't be that bad. They're typical to have those on the speed bumps. To put them on Lake Avenue? I'm sorry, not Lake Avenue, Lake Drive.
Yeah, certainly we don't have any trouble with that. You want to call those homeowners and tell, or we just want to go out and do it?
You mean?
Well, we'd rather you get the call, Kevin. After
I know, I get those too, believe me. What are you doing? What are you doing? You know?
No, I mean, I don't think that's, I think they have to realize it's a public road and it's not just for them. So I don't think we need their permission. I don't know how everyone else feels. I'm very much into letting people, have opinions on these things, but, for the purpose of safety, we can't ask them, what do you think this is a good idea? I mean, well, we can, but I think
my feeling is that having them visible will actually make people slow down and make that section of roadway safer.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Right. Well, weren't they painted at one time?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Donna. I'm wondering if the paint just wore off. I think they had white stripes on them, didn't they?
Or something, or just lines on either side of them.
Yeah.
I think it is good to alert, let
Yeah, definitely.
both bicyclists and cars know, hey, there's a bump here, because they blend right in with the road right now. There's, there's three of them. So I think paint is a great idea.
Kevin, what would be your preference in terms of how you would mark them? I mean, just from the point of view of what the city does.
Well, I'd look at the manual and just see. I mean, I'm sure there's a standard for how they should be marked, and we would do that. I'm not sure what that is without looking, but
I have seen triangles, but I'm sure do whatever the manual says.
Sure.
John, any comments? Hello, John. He's frozen. John, can you hear
Kind
us?
of digitized there.
I'm not so sure he can hear us. He seems like he can't. Walter, any comments about this?
Paint the speed bump, but on Lake Drive, if you come from,
King Charles.
you come off the first block there by Flickinger's and come around, any signs that you put up are going to have to be on the lake side of the roadway, and that's not going to be well received. And if it's on the sidewalk side of the roadway, that's not going to be convenient because that's the parking sign, but just repaint the speed bumps themselves.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
That is, I
that's the
believe that is what
recommendation.
we all are recommending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. I don't think John is.
Are you on, John? There you
I am here, but I am either having problems with the internet connection or the transmit.
Oh, there it
I
froze
think
again.
I think you are probably having internet connection problems because we're all fine. So.
Okay, it must be my internet.
You're okay now. I'm gonna go in and out.
Any comments on these speed bumps, John?
No, I don't have any comment as I'm not familiar enough with that area to venture an opinion.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that's easy. I'm glad we're dealing with this and it can get it done. So this is always like it when we can get something done.
Just keep
The
track
next-
of all your accomplishments. That's
Yeah.
the key. One day someone will ask.
Oh, I doubt it. So the next thing is actually discuss possible solutions for pedestrian safety at the circle. Now, this is going to be a much longer discussion. And as you know, both Susan and I will not be able to discuss this. I'm hoping that John Dewey will be able to discuss this. But Donna and David, it looks like you all are the ones who are going to be talking a little bit about this.
Yes. Hey, Donna, can you email John what you sent me, or should I send it?
Can you do it?
Sure. Sure. Hold on one sec.
So, Susan, I think we probably should just turn our video off. We can certainly listen, but we can't participate. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna,
I'd ask you to take over as chairing this at this
so
point.
my video will be going in and out for just a moment.
Okay, Donna, I'm fishing, but I'll find it.
Okay.
Where did everyone go?
No, we're here. John.Dewey5. Here we go.
Find.
Please don't tell people his email address out over the internet.
Sorry. He'll get spammed like crazy now. My apologies. Okay, it's on the way. Donna did a comprehensive write-up of the circle. Her crystal ball is perfectly clear about where things are going to end up there. And the comment that I made to her is that we were told in the past that DelDOT wants us to identify problems, but refrain from making suggestions as to what needs to be done to correct them. So we know that there are going to be changes in the traffic patterns because of the theater and the spotlight. And we know that from reading the report that was done by the ClearSpace people, that they expect that traffic flow to be spread out. A lot of people go to the boardwalk before a performance. A lot of people go out to dinner before a performance. A lot of people hang around after a performance and go back to the boardwalk or get something to eat. So it won't be intense for a short period of time, but there will be a lot of changes, I think, with pedestrian traffic, because the available parking is going to be limited to the parking lot in front of the museum, which will transition to a pay lot on May 15, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So that may impact some people in their choice about where to park. So that leads me to think that State Road and Canal Street, and then the streets like Sussex, et cetera, behind ClearSpace are going to be fairly popular. So our concern, Donna and my concern at this point, is that people crossing Rehoboth Avenue are going to primarily be crossing at the circle to get to the location that's going to be between the circle and Fifth Street. And there will be some people that will cross where we have the new strobe lights just at 4th and 5th and State. But realistically, there are going to be a lot more people walking around that circle after dark, at least when they're leaving a performance. So we've got strobe lights down the avenue. So we've got we've got control at first and second, then we've got strobes down to fifth, but we're still unprotected at the circle, which has very short sight lines and motorists that are focused on getting around there as quickly as they can so that they can accelerate up Rehoboth Avenue, as opposed to looking for pedestrians. That's my perspective.
Yeah. I think exactly. I mean, I share the same concerns. I think it's really a dangerous situation that's developing. And if there's increased, if anything brings in a heavy flow of foot traffic to the circle, it just too dangerous for people, especially at night. And I too, if clear space is there, and it's going to create all that foot traffic with possibly 300 people. And I'm very concerned about the foot traffic that would go from a theater there over to like Rise and Egg. I think people would focus on those two eateries to combine with a show. So I think, and that's where it's most dangerous, trying to go catty corner across Rehoboth.
Egg closes at 2, Donna, so they're not in the frame, but Rise Up.
But I don't know, David, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe extended their hours. If there's a lot of evening traffic down there, they could easily extend their hours. So I guess that's why
I've never sensed an inclination there to extend the hours, but
well,
they're wonderfully nice, hardworking people. And I think that their schedule is pretty much full. But Rise Up, once the COVID journey kind of goes full circle, they're open till 11. And that will be a popular spot because they do have a bar in there.
Right. So I think, and that, yeah, it puts the pedestrians at great risk. Also, it will really slow down traffic. When you think of a lot of pedestrians walking there, pedestrians have the right of way. Once they walk in one of those crosswalks, they slow down the traffic. That can really back up traffic. It
tends to cause frustration and lead to honking of horns, because I've spent some time sitting there kind of watching the dynamics.
Right.
And the people coming around the circle can't see that someone has stopped to yield to a pedestrian in the crosswalk. That's why I think if we can continue our strobe project down to the west side of the circle, that'll be of some benefit. And my guess is that there are probably some other devices that are available that might even extend the strobing to beyond the circle or up Rehoboth Avenue, depending on the direction of travel, to give people a little bit of a warning.
I'm going to interrupt the discussion for just a minute. I continue to have problems with my internet connection, so I'm going to be silent for a couple minutes. I need to reboot, and I'll be back in. I apologize.
All right, no problem. We'll just kind of hold while you're rebooting.
Okay. Well, David, I don't know how strobe lights would really do enough. If you're suggesting more strobe lights around.
Well, I've actually emailed Kevin a couple of pictures that I've come across in my travels. There are larger signs. There are signs that are linked together. So you've got advance warning. Right now we have blinking lights at the circle, but we don't have blinking lights before the circle. And this is another thing that's way down the road, but part of what was discussed relative to the strobe light project was long-term, we have the potential to put strobing up lights in the pavement where the stripes are. When the street, at a point in time when Rehoboth Avenue would need to be repaved and Rehoboth Avenue would be under construction and there would be excavation of the street, there's been conversation about putting strobing up lights all the way across from one side of the other.
What would happen but those strobe lights would be triggered by a pedestrian coming at any time, intermittent. They could,
whenever they push the button.
From all four directions.
Whenever they push the button.
Yeah, or you could have pedestrians pushing buttons on every corner there at the circle.
You could.
And that would be, I just don't think that's a safe situation. I mean, here we talked about speed bumps at one time, but we know speed bumps don't work because of the emergency vehicles. And it could actually, speed bumps could slow down the regular traffic too much at that primary artery.
We couldn't ever, again, it's a Del Dot street. We
Right.
talked about rumble strips at one point, and they create quite a bit of noise, which is not when you're
And
in
they're not good for
a
bicycles.
residential area, it's just not peaceful.
When I think
And
about, sorry. Go ahead.
so speed bumps aren't an option on Rehoboth Avenue. And ultimately, we're going to have to see, we're speculating because they haven't even had one shovelful of dirt move yet. But it's at least a year away before we're going to be in this situation. One of the things that I've noticed works well at the Circle is a police vehicle parked between Egg and McGregor on Grove Street in the small median that exists there as kind of a deterrent. It seemed to change people's behavior a little bit. I don't even know if there was anybody in the police car. I believe it was just there static. But I'm sure that the brain power at Del Dot will have a way to come up with solutions that'll help us deal with whatever is going to occur. Because again, we're speculating. Our crystal ball is clear right now, but it could get cloudy. And then which way does it go? If people end up parking on Henlopen Avenue by the cemetery, and people end up parking on Sussex and Kent, then there may be less traffic. There may be people intimidated that don't want to cross Rehoboth Avenue and park on that side. We kind of have to wait to see how it plays out because we know that most people drive there. Their statistics show that most people drive there.
That's
So
right.
Drive and park somewhere. Is the VFW lot available? Would that ever be an option? Could they rent the lot from the VFW? Well, then more people would be crossing Rehoboth Avenue. The vacant structure on the other side of State and Rehoboth Avenue that's just on pause, that parking lot's available. Would somehow Clear Space make an arrangement to rent that lot? And then there'd be even more people crossing Rehoboth Avenue. But we don't, these are questions we can't answer right now.
But I think it's a very dangerous situation in a way, I guess, rather than waiting till problems occur. I think we can easily anticipate these problems. We know that. And I think we should try to prevent problems. And when I think about pedestrian safety, that's going to be critical there. I can't imagine really any way to protect pedestrians other than to give them a traffic light that stops all traffic and lets them cross. And that would be, that's eventually what I think will have to happen. I can't imagine how you can fix that circle to accommodate traffic and pedestrians. And I think the reality is you think about traffic circles, they're great for cars and vehicles. They're not good for pedestrians. They're not, and we have a really bad situation here.
And part what may have to happen there, Donna, is the pedestrian crosswalks may have to be relocated. Again, we have to trust that the professionals from Del Dot are going to do the right thing.
Well,
we're letting them know there's the potential for a problem.
Yeah, I really would like to have Del Dot input into this. I mean, I guess what I'm feeling right now is to share our concerns with the commissioners and the state and the public to let them know how we anticipate these problems and what some of the likely consequences will be. And I would like to have Del Dot. I don't know that Del Dot's been involved in this discussion whatsoever. And I would be curious about I would like their input on how they would manage this situation. And this is a unique situation, David, because you think about it, all the businesses around the circle do have parking lots. They all have, Rise has a nice sized parking lot. Egg has, I'm sure they'll go back to that once COVID's passed, they'll go back to the regular regulations.
My sense is that the outside dining is working really well for them. But again, we'll see what happens.
Well, but I think it's unusual that
I see John Gauger. John, you can unmute yourself and say hello. There you
How's
go.
that?
Hi,
Hey, great.
John.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi,
You could join us.
thank you.
So we're discussing the circle and the potential for pedestrian issues once Clear Space is constructed and operational. So it's a long-term project to deal with what's going to happen there and how to make it safe. just like crosswalk stripes on King Charles and other things that take time to happen. It's at least 1 year from now that the first person's going to walk in that building. Is that a safe assumption? Because I think
Yeah,
there's still hearings going on, et cetera. So it's long-term. Things will evolve. And we just have to make the commissioners know that it's going to become we don't want to ever reach crisis point. We don't ever want anybody to get touched by a motor vehicle.
Right. I like Donna's idea about putting up a traffic light, but I don't know how we can do that with a circle there.
I think the traffic light would be chaotic in
Yeah.
a simple sense, and it could be devastating in terms of traffic backlog. It's bad enough people leaving the city now. You can't even come out of the museum parking lot and have someone let you in when you want to leave the parking lot because they're obsessed with closing the gap to the car in front of them. So there's quite a bit of stress now. And if a traffic light ever got placed there, I think it would just be catastrophic. That's just.
Well, there was a traffic light there before the circle. I mean, they did have that. So DelDOT has statistics and stuff about how the traffic light functioned and what they might have to do. But I don't, like I said, I can't think of any other way that you accommodate a large number of pedestrians and traffic and that you give pedestrians a safe way to cross. And it's not ideal. I don't like the idea. I think it's very problematic, but I don't know any other way to make that.
There are some places around the world, Donna, where they actually put up fences to keep people from crossing.
Well,
at certain places. So there's a lot of different solutions to the problem around the world. DelDOT clearly is in a circle direction, not a traffic light direction, from everything I've seen that they're doing around Sussex County. So again,
David, in Germany, they have underpasses. You can walk under the street.
Yes, they do.
Or over, pedestrian.
All those things are wonderful. And I'm not sure economically that they're possible in the city of Rehoboth Beach, but you never know.
Mhm.
You never know.
Well, whoever thought we'd get the train off of Rehoboth Avenue? So.
Well, at one point in time, there were 10 gas stations there. And before that, there was railroad tracks.
Right.
So it keeps changing. And now we're down to 0 gas stations and no railroad tracks.
So John,
we've had a parking problem that goes back to the 50s. In the clear space presentation, I noted that there is awareness of what's available in terms of park and ride, which to me makes a lot of sense. And from what I've learned, a lot of the time the buses leaving town are full because it's so popular. So you can't even get on a bus to leave town if you're down as far as the Arc. And I think the proposal was to move that bus stop in front of clear space. But again, I think if demand is there, public transportation will adjust. It's something that a lot of places people it's second nature to park in a shuttle lot and park and ride. The example I typically use with people is Williamsburg, Virginia, which has got a phenomenal bus system. And you don't even think about driving into Williamsburg. You just go to the visitor center, park, and get on a bus. That's not the way it is in Rehoboth Beach. So we have potential there. There are parking lots that are not used at that time of day at the school. Maybe something could develop there. We don't know. But again, let's not spend a tremendous amount of time on it because it is at least a year from now. So if we let the commissioners know that we see the potential for risk, and we're extremely concerned about pedestrian safety at the circle, when things mature, then we just have to keep revisiting it and not forget about it.
Right, that's good. The other thing, David, to remember is it's in a residential area, and I for one, will probably walk over. So then I have to get across the street somehow.
Yes, and right now your safe place is at 5th and State, where there's a strobe light and a fairly wide median. And the strobe light is still requiring adjustment on the part of the motorists. So not everyone's used to it on that side either. Certainly when people are leaving, it'll be dark, they'll be more visible. But again, we're aware of the potential of a problem, multiple problems, and let's just keep it in front of the commissioners as we go forward and raise the intensity the closer we get to the structure being completed and people actually going to a play or a performance.
And I apologize for missing a lot of the conversation. I think I've got my internet straightened out.
Your picture is much better. Your video is good. We're basically looking at what I call advanced planning for dealing with pedestrian issues at the circle once clear space is complete and operational.
And I was able to hear about the last 60 seconds of your comments, David. And I agree that the most efficient strategy at the moment is to stay on top of it, make sure that we are keeping the commissioners informed of further developments. To a certain extent, you can't actually solve a problem that hasn't developed yet, but this is a problem that we can anticipate. I did hear some of the comments regarding the use of the shuttle to get visitors in and out of town. I wonder if something that can be kept on a waiting list for consideration is whether there would be enough customers coming out of clear space at a predictable time that DART could work together with the city so that a dedicated bus was showing up at that location to take people back to their cars. And being new to the committee, something that continues to be an issue, and perhaps it's part of this discussion, is the ongoing issue of pedestrian safety there at Rise Up, that crosswalk there by the circle. And I'll just put that thought out there. I'm not sure where that falls on an agenda or how active a discussion that currently is with the committee.
You have to step into the street before the motorist is obligated to yield, which is Delaware law. So I cross there fairly often because I live down Canal Street and I have to get to the museum with regularity. So that spot, that crosswalk, particularly on farmers market days, is fairly active.
Right.
But we just make it a point to get out there and make sure that the person's stopping before we proceed. But again, people are intense about getting around that circle to get a parking space. The expressions and the death grip on steering wheels is unfortunate. That's what we deal with all the time.
So David, what you're proposing is that we keep the commissioners advised of our concerns or the issues.
Absolutely. We can't, just like the crosswalk stripes on King Charles, where they exist for block after block after block, and then they just stop.
Okay. But how about, David, in addition to keeping the commissioners advised of our concerns and how this will be an ongoing problem, serious problem to keep an eye on, I think we should also share that with DelDOT to let them know. And
clear space management, because
they're
creating an attraction that's going to draw people, and they want their customers being safe just as well as we do.
And some of their mitigation ideas for it just won't work. We've talked about that, as far as speed bumps and having an officer.
That's it. I got to send John that report that they published also.
I think I already sent it to John.
Did you send it to John?
Gogger.
Yeah,
but also
I think, Dewey.
Yeah, I think I did. I think the other thing is, like, we should be advising the public of this, of what could be likely consequences, or we anticipate these issues. We know that there may be significant changes
Okay, that's
and that.
The clear space report's on the way to John Dewey.
As you can see, I'm now on because we're rapidly getting to 11 o'clock.
I think we've covered it like a blanket, Pat. I think we can move on.
And well, also, but you need to let Walter also make comments.
Yes, please.
If he's interested.
Absolutely.
Walter, feel free to do that.
Well, I guess my question is, if you want to let the commissioners know and Del Dot, how are we going to do that? What steps do we take?
Pat's there, but I think she's muted.
I can't address this right now. You all.
Okay, no problem.
That's for you to address.
Okay.
Well,
no
I guess
problem.
I'm asking David and John Gogger, what, we have this discussion, we do anything else?
We can formulate a motion and vote on it. There are 4 of us that we would like to send this upstream.
In a point of order, though, I will ask you to let Walter speak first, because
Yeah, I don't see Walter on the string here, but he's welcome to speak whenever he can.
Walter is unmuted. Oh, now he's muted.
There we go.
You're doing fantastic on your discussion. You're really being thorough and keep up the good work. The balance coming from David about keeping the commissioners informed, that's the most you can do. You are all to be congratulated for the common sense approach.
Thank you.
Well, would you like a motion, David? Can we,
Yeah,
you
we
want
need to have a motion and then we need to have a second. So
Okay.
we would like to make a motion that
Okay,
would bring the potential for traffic pedestrian issues at this traffic circle with the advent of clear space on the horizon. We would like to make them aware of it and keep it in their thoughts as we go forward, so that a year from now, it's not a big surprise.
Yeah, and put a copy of this to Del Dot.
Yes. So
Okay,
we need a motion and a second, and then we can move that upstream.
Okay, I make that motion that we send a memo to the commissioners with a copy to Del Dot, that we anticipate serious pedestrian safety issues at the circle as clear space or any project of a sizable nature would go into that area without parking. And that we want the commissioners to be aware of it and to be thinking about that. And that there could be significant changes could be required to make it safe.
Sounds good. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
John Dewey. And John
Thanks,
Gogger,
John.
are you still there? Yeah, I see your video dropped off.
Yeah, I don't know where my picture went.
No problem. Okay, so as a designated secretary for this portion of the meeting, can you be sure to write that up for us? Now John's quiet.
Yeah, I don't know if he can hear us.
Are you there, John Gogger?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you. Can we turn the meeting back over to Pat now?
Thank you.
right.
Susan, please join the meeting again. Yes, someone please, whatever portion of that meeting, please forward that information to me and I will include it in our report. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're fortunate that John Gogger dropped in right just at the right time.
Yes, yes. Thanks for joining us, John. And John
Okay.
Dewey too.
Let Donna do it. She made the motion. I didn't write it down. You do
Donna,
it,
you
Donna.
may,
Okay, Donna, you can write it up and then John can edit.
There you go.
so
Oh,
just so you all agree
I
on
was
what was,
afraid this would happen. I was afraid this would happen.
so
Well,
pass
you've
the
already
one-
written an entire book about it. This is just a paragraph now.
so
Uh-huh.
pass it
You're fine.
amongst yourselves and make sure you've got it correct before you send it to me, please.
Yes, we will.
Thank you. Okay, so future agenda items, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, we will, first on the agenda will be, at least under new business, will be the issue for the goods on their curbing suggestion. I believe we've really addressed what we needed to on sharrows, placement of bike racks, the speed bump. And that it looks like for now, you all are going to be sending a memo and this will be discussed much later in terms of the traffic circle issues.
Yes, we just want to keep it bubbling to the surface over the coming year.
Okay. So, future, yes, John, go ahead.
Pat, you had asked that I remind you about the question about access to sufficient number of handicap parking spaces.
Yes.
That just hit the press this week.
Yes, it did. So I'm not sure how to address this right now because actually the city's being sued. And I don't know, Susan, I mean, I don't know whether we can actually be involved in comments on this right now.
Yeah.
I think it's moved past us at this point.
Are we talking about the next agenda though? Is that what he's talking
Yeah,
about?
next agenda.
Adding it to the next, then I guess it depends. I'm not sure, because I don't know when that'll be, so.
Yeah, so I'll verify what our participation can be at this point, but John, you should know that there's something moving forward with that. So it is moving forward.
Yeah.
Other things for the agenda? Anyone?
Do we have a date for this next meeting?
No, that was, we are going to talk about
Can't
that.
hear me?
John Gauger has a question.
I wonder if Pat was on the committee, but we did have the handicap head of the handicap commission come to Rehoboth and talk to the committee and examine how many handicap parking places we have. He was in a wheelchair himself, and he said we met the minimum. He didn't say we had enough. He said we met the minimum. Do you remember that, Pat?
I don't actually.
That would have been
Okay.
would that have been in the era when parking and streets were combined?
That's when I was trying to get more parking for the city for handicapped, and we got a couple more on Rehoboth Avenue, but I didn't think we had enough. And when we got him in, why, I can't remember what commission he's from, but he was a handicapped person himself, and he said we met the minimum.
Right. So, I mean, and that is true. But as I say, the city is now forced into moving forward with something at this point. What exactly is going to happen, I don't know. It is now going to become a legal issue for the city, and I wouldn't comment any farther on that.
Yeah, I don't think we can get
past-
involved. It's moved.
Yeah,
past us.
it's past us at this point.
Speaking of handicap parking in the city, I just want to point out Laurel at the boardwalk. The city has excellent parking there for handicap. They've done a wonderful job creating parking right there so that handicapped people can get to the boardwalk and the beach.
I used to use that for my wife, and we would go all over Rehoboth after we parked there. Take
Yeah.
it right up the boardwalk.
It's very, very nice.
It used to be free.
Oh, not free
So
anymore.
let's quickly discuss when the next meeting should be.
Yes, please.
Thursdays have generally been, I believe, the dates that we've been meeting, correct?
Yes.
Done
Oh, we
first,
switched
right?
it to that. We just recently switched it to Thursday. Yeah.
But we've
So-
done first Thursdays typically, or?
That's fine with me if you all want to go to June 3rd on this.
I can't do the 3rd.
How about
I can do the
10th?
10th, the 17th, the 24th, but not the 3rd.
10th work for everyone.
I'm good for the 10th.
The 10th, we have something, we have a meeting on the 10th, Pat, but I can't get the calendar to open, so I can't see when it is.
Let me look.
Well, how about the afternoon?
The afternoon might work. I can't remember when that meeting is, but I think it's probably at 10.
Let me look real quick.
I don't know that the time has been posted. It hasn't. It's a special meeting, but the time hasn't been posted. But it's probably in the morning.
Okay, well then let's go ahead and just
You
assume
want to
it
shoot for
is
2 o'clock on the 10th? Is that
schedule
safe?
something in the afternoon. 2 o'clock on the 10th? How's that work for
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah, let's start there and see if it works with the city.
Okay, if we need to change the time, I mean, if everyone is available on the 10th, that's good. And if we need to change the time, then we'll do that. Okay. So agenda items. Anyone else want to? And we had some, I mean, right offhand, I'm drawing a blank. There are still some things on our priority list, but does anyone have anything they want to discuss? on the next agenda besides what we are? I do believe that the discussion about the curbing is going to take some time. So I think that maybe one other agenda item could be entertained. If no one has anything, I'll take a look at our priority list and add what I believe would make sense to add, okay? If no one else has any other ideas at this point,
Okay.
Nothing for me at this point.
okay? All right, very good then.
All right,
Thank you, everyone, and
thank
we'll
you.
see on the 10th at 2 o'clock.
All right, if not sooner.
Right.
Yeah, and if I don't have the 10th in the morning, I've got a conflict. So if there's a late minute rescheduling of time, I would have trouble with that.
Well, right now, I think we're trying for the afternoon on the 10th.
Okay, yeah, I'm good for that.
I think Pat, 2 p.m. is the target.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
All right,
you.
bye-bye.
Good meeting.